Who's calling the shots in Iran? The Pentagon or Anthropic's AI chatbot, Claude? AI is so deeply embedded in the U.S. military that when Anthropic pushed back on certain uses of Claude, the Pentagon banned all defense contractors from using it, the first time such a sanction has ever been slapped on a U.S. company. Now, the Financial Times is reporting that the Trump administration has drafted rules demanding AI companies obey their authority in future contracts. The struggle to control AI is playing out while U.S. forces use Claude in operations from Venezuela to Iran. Here's a quick recap.
Wars push the boundaries of technology, in possibility and in policy. AI is no different. In Venezuela and Iran, the US military has reportedly used Anthropic's Claude chatbot to analyze battlefield data. At the same time, a monumental argument has broken out over the future capabilities of the tech. The Trump administration has ripped up its partnership and banned defense contractors from using Claude because Anthropic says it shouldn't be used for fully autonomous weapons or mass surveillance of US citizens. These are not current uses, but the Pentagon sees ruling them out as an obstacle to keeping up with China. Anthropic has threatened to sue while trying to contain the fallout and defend its values.
I'm joined now by tech editor Peter O'Brien, who made that report. Also joined by Sam Hammond from the Foundation for American Innovation. Peter, it seems like this is just the start of something big.
Yeah, perhaps for the first time, we're looking at a very powerful and, let's be frank, power-hungry government being confronted with the idea that someone else might want to exert some control over what is proving to be the most useful, most promising technology of our time. And this is playing out every day. The latest since I did that piece was the story of OpenAI's top robotics exec, Caitlin Kalinowski. She's resigned from OpenAI because OpenAI swooped in to replace Anthropic after they were blacklisted. And she says that this deal was made too quickly and with insufficient guardrails, exactly the kind of guardrails about not exerting surveillance over American citizens, not developing lethal autonomous weapons. Those were the guardrails Anthropic was wanting to maintain and defend, and those are the demands that caused them to be blacklisted by the Pentagon.
Sam, you signed a letter condemning the blacklisting of Anthropic. Why?
Yes, thank you. This is completely unprecedented applied to a U.S. technology company. Designating Anthropic supply chain risk is something normally reserved for adversaries, for Chinese companies that are seeking to hack our systems. Moreover, when this was first announced, there was some confusion over the extent of the action being taken. Pete Hegseth had a tweet that suggested this designation would restrict any vendor to the U.S. government and the U.S. military partnering with Anthropic. If that had gone through, in the tack that they pursued, this would have been amounted to corporate murder, attempting to not just remove Anthropic from military contracts, but to destroy it as a company.
And Sam, if I can jump in there, as you say, this was the initial plan, or at least what Trump was saying, but now it's become clear that this isn't really a Huawei-style sanction. It's only applying to defense contractors. So is it now an exaggeration to say that this is existential for Anthropic?
Yes, I mean, there was some uncertainty in the 7 or 8 days between when that was first announced and when their notification was given. The statute is very clear. The supply chain risk designation only restricts military contracts, Anthropic from those military contracts, not anything else. So whether it's Google or Amazon or Microsoft, they're still able to continue using Anthropic outside of their military contracts. This is still, however, the same sort of designation that's normally only reserved for foreign adversary companies. So while it's not existential for Anthropic, I think it is has a quite chilling effect on the US AI ecosystem more broadly.
So is it still, would you qualify it as an authoritarian overreach in its current form?
Well, you always say don't attribute to malice, but you can attribute to incompetence. I think there is some misinformation going on within the Department of Defense, within elements of the White House that believe Anthropic is this very left-wing company with extreme views, when in fact they have at this point, the number one downloaded AI product on the App Store. There's a huge, essentially, politicization of artificial intelligence that's taken place, partly driven by social media, but is now seeped into our national security policy.
And at risk of politicizing it further, from a European perspective, I can understand how some argue that libertarian think tanks, such as your own, might have contributed to the conditions that brought us Donald Trump's second term, that now bringing this kind of move to control technology. Do you accept that?
I mean, the irony here is that the Trump administration's broader policy has been very pro-AI. Which is something I support. A colleague of mine helped to draft the White House's AI action plan. It called for an America First approach to AI for building out infrastructure and energy. And in this case, it's something that feels quite a lot like a betrayal, both of the stated mission and of broadly libertarian values. It's not a libertarian value to seek to destroy a particular company.
Sam, where do you see this battle ending up? Do you think it will end up with the White House in control of AI?
Well, this is the broader worry. AI as a technology is accelerating in its progress. The systems we have today can now use your computer, do software tasks, and the autonomy and power of these models is doubling every 5 months or so. And so there is this bigger question that I think as a society we have to grapple with. Who is the ultimate arbiter of how these tools are used? Is it governments or is it private corporations? And there's arguments to be made for both. And I think this is a longer term tension that we're going to have to work out through the democratic process.